Hello there everybody, it is me XfreezerBunny and welcome back to another Sims 4 speed build. Today we're building a traditional Filipino ancestral house with a little net cafe home business on the ground floor. This house was actually inspired by my grandparents' home, so this is a pretty nostalgic build. This is also the first build I'm doing on the channel featuring CC that I created myself. So this build does contain CC. All of the links to the CC that you will need to make this build look the way it does in the video is going to be linked in the description. I only used the old Manila parts 1 to 3 set that I created, and I'm really proud of it, and I'm really excited to finally be able to feature it in a build, even though I have already featured those sets in separate videos showcasing each and every item and also kind of like explaining all of the different items as well, because I wanted to take the time to be able to show it off to you guys. So yeah, fun fact, we are building this on this lot right here in Tomarang, which is called Isda Waterfront. And whenever I say that out loud, it always makes me laugh because Isda, first of all, it's the Filipino word for fish. So I mean, I feel like it's very suitable for this lot, but at the same time, if it's kind of like English slang, if you guys get what I mean, because it's like it's the waterfront. You guys get what I mean? It's like east the water. It just makes me laugh. They did a really good job actually at incorporating kind of like the Southeast Asian culture, and also making sure that all of the different countries are represented. I don't know how other countries in Southeast Asia feel, but I've definitely seen some like Filipino Easter eggs here and there. There's like a little traditional boat in some part of the world. I forget where it is. I think it's in this area actually. And yeah, this is also a build that features a new gameplay that was introduced with the businesses and hobbies expansion pack. This build does use the what's it called? The entrance fee feature that came with business and hobbies. I don't actually know if I ended up placing like an entrance kiosk or something, because I did build this like about a month ago. I just didn't have time to like edit this video and put together a speed build for you guys, but I think I did manage to put like an entrance fee kiosk type of thing. If I haven't, I will just add one after the fact. But yeah, initially I slightly struggled with the floor plan here because obviously we have a lot of limitations in The Sims. Even though I already used CC, I still struggle with the floor plan, mainly because we don't really have half tile sizes in The Sims. Like, it always has to be like 1 or 2 tiles big. Like for the staircase, for example, I probably would have liked to have like a 1.5 width staircase, because I feel like 1 meter was, because 1 square in this is roughly equal to 1 meter in real life, in case you guys didn't know. I feel like for the staircase, like 1 meter was like way too narrow, but 2 meters to me was like way too wide as well, like maybe for a mansion. But I feel like this house is a little bit more of a suburban house, so I feel like having a staircase that's that wide doesn't really make sense. It's a little bit out of proportion. And here you guys can just see me work on the layout, because I did want this layout to be as authentic as possible, as historically accurate as possible. Like I said earlier, this house was based off of my grandparents' house, including the net cafe aspect of it, which I will get to later on, I guess. But this house in particular, I would say, is probably like an 1800s style house, maybe like mid to late 1800s. My grandparents' house isn't that old. It was built, I think, in the 1950s or 1960s. So it's not that old, but it's very similar to this when it comes to the layout, actually. And you can kind of see that traditional floor layout even in more recently built Filipino homes, which is very interesting how, that kind of tradition persisted. Because I have a lot of relatives that live in houses that were built in like the 1960s, 1970s, and they still have this traditional layout, even though their houses look a little bit more like mid-century modern. They still have this layout, which I thought was really interesting. But yeah, for those of you guys who are not familiar with Filipino history, this traditional house prototype is called locally as a bahay na bato, or a stone house. That's not entirely an accurate name for this house, because technically this is just a stilt house with a stone curtain wall on the ground floor. What I mean by that is that the stone curtain wall isn't actually a load-bearing wall. The load of the structure is actually carried by the house posts, which are a prominent feature in Filipino houses. So essentially, this house is just a stilt house with a non-load bearing masonry ground floor. And the reason for that is because of the different climate and natural phenomena that we experience here in the Philippines. We have things like typhoons and floods and volcanic eruptions and also earthquakes. So this house developed to suit that climate. A lot of people actually call this a Spanish house, which I personally don't like, because this is a vernacular house here in the Philippines. It developed locally to suit the needs of the people. I don't think it's appropriate to really call it a Spanish house, even though they were built during a time when the Philippines was a Spanish colony. I think this house is still a vernacular house because the innovations are really unique to, the different circumstances that we have here in the Philippines. Also, I feel like that accordion door thing right there is very apt to reality, because I think I've seen that somewhere actually from different shops that I've seen growing up. I live in a big city, so there's really not a lot of like traditional buildings like this anymore. Actually, I don't know if that's completely true, because I am based in Manila right now, and there are actually quite a lot of like older buildings. This prototype though, the Bahay na Bato prototype, is very rare in Manila, but it is still in existence in other parts of the country, like especially in provinces outside of Manila. This house, I think, evolved probably in the 18th century. At least the oldest versions of this house date back from that time period. There might have been older houses that just didn't survive because, things like natural disaster and war. Actually, another culprit as to why there's really not a lot of historical structures left in the Philippines is because we got devastated by war. Like World War II, for example, completely destroyed the Filipino cities. I think Manila was like one of the most destroyed in like World War II. The historical center of Manila was like completely destroyed, which is really sad. The only structure that was left also just happened to be the oldest church. But yeah, there's like only one surviving structure after World War II in the old part of the Manila. It's probably something that I will get into at a later date. Apologies for clearing my throat there. But you guys just saw me work on the floor plan. If you guys are wondering, these windows right here are called Capiz windows. And they look like things that you would see probably in Japan or in like Korea. But in the Philippines, we actually use a type of shell instead of glass, which is pretty cool. It's like a translucent shell called capiz. And just looking at it, like, I feel like it already gives you like that very traditional Filipino vibe, so that makes sense. Oh, I also bought the Basement Treasures pack. I'm working on a little project right now where I needed to buy the Basement Treasures pack, and I feel like it suited this build really well. So I just threw in a couple of items from that pack as well. Also, I don't know if you guys noticed, but I did like struggle with the floor plan for this build, so I completely talked over it. But I did actually like make some adjustments to the floor plans. Like I made the staircase a little bit smaller actually, because the original one was like 2 tiles and it was like way too wide. Didn't have a space for the living room, and the entrance hall and the dining hall. Not dining hall, it's a dining area, I guess, because it's not like a room. But as you can see, I am mixing and matching items from the old Manila set with stuff from the game, with like Max's EA content, and I gotta say it looks really good. I tried to, as somebody who made the old Manila set CC myself, I want to say that I did try my best to make it look Max's match, but I do feel like it's a little bit more like alpha, I guess. I'm pretty inexperienced when it comes to making CC, but I'm pretty proud of all of the items that I've created so far, especially in terms of like authenticity and like historical accuracy. By the way, that's like a little Filipino Easter egg right there. The No Limatanghere and El Filibusterismo books by our national hero, or one of our national heroes, Jose Rizal. Written in Europe, by the way. So shout out to the Europe fam. I don't think it sold in Europe, but I don't think it sold very well. But yeah, it was a series of novels actually written in Europe, and it was intended to spread awareness about the colonial situation in the Philippines in the 19th century. I think in the end, though, the people who read it were just Filipinos, which is really funny because I feel like the point of the novels were to spread awareness to Europeans and maybe get some momentum for Philippine independence, because this happened in like the late 1800s, by the way. So yeah, it was a whole thing. I'm probably not gonna get into that, but yeah, most of the living room furniture is from the old Manila set. There's also some clutter items in there as well, but everything else is EA content. I didn't really limit myself with the stuff packs that I used, or like with just any pack in general, because I still haven't created like a bedroom set. I would like to at some point, but I still haven't done that yet. I would also like to do a dining room set at some point. I'm probably just gonna convert the chairs, honestly, because I don't really have time for that, unfortunately. As you guys know, I have a full-time job and I'm currently managing my own team, and it hasn't been going as smoothly as I hoped. By the way, that bed is from... Oh, what is that bed from? The Grim Reaper pack. Life and Death? Yeah, it's from Life and Death. Oh, by the way, I just want to quickly point out that this layout right here, it's very similar to like my dad's ancestral house. Like it did have like this row of bedrooms like this, and where the dining room is located is also where they have it in my dad's house. I think my dad's house is actually bigger because it probably had like 3 or 4 bedrooms and a bigger dining room, but layout wise it's pretty similar to this one. And just notice that I did actually add some modern items to this as well. Didn't necessarily make this into, or I didn't necessarily try to make this into like a historical build. Like I wanted this to still be a modern home with like some, items that make it feel like it's been lived in and passed on to like the different generations. So, there's items in here that may have come from the 1800s, and then, there's like items from the mid-century era, and there's items from the modern era, mostly in the kitchen and the bathroom actually, which is what we're working on right now. This bathroom right here is probably something that you would typically see in like a Filipino house. Wasn't super happy with this layout where the shower was, so I will like move things around. But yeah, there's also like a little bucket over there as well, because that's actually what we use to take a bath. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's like videos of that online. Yeah, I remember in my childhood home, the water power, not the water power, the strength of the water. What's that? How do you say that? Yeah, the power of the water like wasn't strong enough so that the shower would work properly. So we just used the bucket. It's fine. I mean, we got through it. We also didn't have a heater, so I remember if it was particularly cold, we would just heat up the water with a kettle, and just try to make do with what we have. Basically, I lived in the countryside growing up. I only moved to the city when I started college. And yeah, living in the countryside just felt like, a very traditional way to live, I guess. And yeah, here we have a somewhat modern kitchen, I guess. There's a rice cooker over there, probably the most important thing for a traditional Filipino household, because, we like to eat rice. In the Philippines, I don't think it's even considered a meal if it doesn't have rice, to be honest. But yeah. These wallpapers, the board and batten wallpapers, are also from Old Manila as well, and I'm actually really proud of those. It's some of my favorite items from the set, and I think they look really good. This particular swatch, it's kind of like a cool tone wood. I feel like, if you're going for more of like not a modern, but a newer house, like a newly built or newly renovated house, I think that works. But I personally really love the wooden swatches though. Like, I prefer seeing the natural, textures of the wood and the stone. By the way, I was really surprised by this like stone texture that came with businesses and hobbies, and how well it matched the stone decorative items, the stone decorative build items that came with the Old Manila. Like, it matched so well. I was so happy. I did actually make some stucco wallpaper that went with the Old Manila set, but I ended up using these ones because they have a little bit more detail on them, and like I said, they just matched the stone pieces, which is pretty cool. Also, there's a washing machine on the entrance hall. Yeah, I feel like that makes sense because I remember my aunt's house. That's where they had like the washing machine. Also, I didn't show it off, but there's like a little storage area which you guys can easily convert into a bedroom or an office, because traditionally that's what it would have been anyway. And then over here, traditionally, this section right here would probably be a storage area, but I wanted it to look like it was renovated to look like a home business. In this case, it is a net cafe, or as we say here in the Philippines, a computer shop. I don't actually know if we used the word net cafe. We definitely didn't use it back in like the early 2000s. So with my grandparents' home, they originally had like what we call a sari store on the ground floor of their house. Amazingly, it's what my grandma it's like my grandma's like main source of income. She was able to send my dad and my aunts and uncles to school just by working in that store. But I think in the early 2000s, they converted it into a computer shop because, back then people didn't really have PCs. Personal computers were very, very expensive, and if you needed to do something like work on documents or like play online games, that's where you would go. And it was mainly for like playing online games, let's be real. Occasionally probably somebody would come here to like get something printed or something like that, because once again, people didn't really have those kinds of things on their houses. So yeah, my personal experience with my aunts, because my aunt actually owned the computer shop. When I say computer shop, it's a net cafe basically. But my personal experience with it is just playing online games with my cousins. The games that were popular back then when I was a kid were strategy games, actually, now that I think about it. Like RTS games, like Command and Conquer, Yuri's Revenge. I remember my introduction to strategy games was actually a game called Battle Realms. I don't know if you guys know that game, but yeah, Battle Realms. I remember trying to play that. And then I eventually discovered Warcraft. And yeah, I played that a lot actually until I got my own computer. This was before Dota was invented, by the way. So, yeah. I remember getting my first computer and Warcraft 3 was pre-installed in it, and I just absolutely loved it because the story was amazing. Other games that were popular were probably games like first-person shooters, actually. I remember Counter-Strike was really popular, and also Ragnarok. So those were probably the kind of games that people were playing when I was a kid. Those were the kinds of games that people were playing in like net cafes. Eventually Dota like became the huge phenomenon that it is, and that's like all people were obsessed about at some point eventually. So yeah, right next to this is a little vacant lot area. I just put like a bunch of like trash and like a basketball court because basketball is kind of like a national obsession here, and literally every street corner has one. So I just put one there. And for the landscaping, I just kept it pretty simple, maybe a little bit overgrown. I tried to use, plants that you would see in like traditional Filipino backyards. So we have things like palm trees and papaya trees as well. I remember we had a little vegetable garden growing up, and we did have like a papaya tree. And there's also a little well over there on the side. It's just a decorative item, but I think it added a nice little detail towards the backyard area. Oh, and there's also like some laundry items over here as well. So you guys need to have laundry day installed if you want that aspect to work as well. But it actually looks like that is going to be it for this build. I had a lot of fun talking with you guys. Maybe it's because I'm just geeking out over Filipino history and culture and architecture, and as you guys know, that's something that I'm really passionate about, and I'm really happy that I'm able to share that with you guys. So hopefully you guys enjoy this video. Hopefully we'll see more of old Manila in the future as well, keeping my fingers crossed. But I just want to say thank you to everybody who supported the Old Manila set on Patreon, on early access. I really appreciate all of your support. It really means a lot to me, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video as well. So yeah, that is going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. You all have an awesome day. Enjoy the rest of the video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.